and we're in. How are you doing today, Bob?
Good. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate being here.
Oh man, it's amazing. We connected a while ago, and we finally made it happen. We're gonna have that conversation.
Eggs.
Excellent. So look, one of the things I'm always super interested in is where people are from, because it's nice to learn about people's careers, and it's nice to learn about all the wonderful things that everyone's doing at the moment. But I also just love having a bit of depth and background on where people have come from, and because it kind of gives you a lot of insight into where they are today, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where are you from?
So I grew up in Portland, Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
and rain was normal up there, so it wasn't a big deal. But I've been down here long enough. Like, the sky is crying.
Like the whole Pacific Northwest. I mean, I spend a lot of time in Vancouver as well.
Mhm.
So, and of course that part of Canada is the same. It just gets rain all winter. It's miserable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you grow up in it, it wasn't a big deal because it was normal and lush and green,
Yeah.
So, and my mom was a professional musician,
Oh.
played multiple instruments, flute, piano, organ, even the pipe organ,
Mm-hmm.
foot pedals, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, that's a skill.
Yes, and she had perfect pitch. So all 5 of us kids were musical.
Oh.
And I played trumpet, guitar, and piano growing up. So I'd be in the living room playing the piano. She'd be in the kitchen. Bob, should have been a C sharp.
Oh wow. She's picking it apart from the kitchen.
Yeah, I'll just fake my way through it. She'll never know.
Yeah.
Never know.
That's wild. So all 5 kids ended up like being musical in some way, shape, or form. No one like rejected it and wanted to go a different direction.
No,
Wow.
no. And I think it was probably because my mom's love for music. So when she wanted us to practice, it wasn't just as a routine. She wanted us to go from making notes
Mm-hmm.
to making music. I had a great trumpet coach. Same.
I think that's one of my great regrets is not learning a musical instrument. But it's not too late. But yeah, it's something I wish I had done as a child. I was too much into sports, so I didn't. I kind of feel like it was one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my mom, professional musician. My father
Mm-hmm.
was a mortician.
A mortician, like someone who deals with the dead. Wow.
And his father was a mortician.
A line of morticians.
It was a family business. I was the oldest boy. I was supposed to be a mortician. And
That's
we're gonna find out.
That's a bit. Is it? I mean, like that's interesting. I mean, obviously, there's family businesses that exist like this, but
Right,
that's kind of. I mean, that's. Is it a dark business to be in, like dealing with this much grief all the time?
Well, since I grew up in it, I saw the compassion that both my father and grandfather had to people who had lost someone. And they would often talk people out of expensive caskets. Now, they made more money if they bought the expensive, solid copper casket. But if they knew their financial background, they would literally, your loved one wouldn't want you to go deep in debt.
Right. That's crazy that people would like go into debt because of a funeral. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if I remember one incident where a child died young, and you'd always loved the processions.
Mhm.
We'd always have police motorcycle escorts. Love that. Never stopped for a red light. Just
Right.
made great time. And the mother made a comment about that, but they couldn't afford that's part of the service.
Mm-hmm.
So my father, out of his own pocket, paid for it.
Oh wow. Yeah.
That's just kind of the man he was. My grandfather, same thing. And I grew up in it. It's a normal thing. I went on calls with my dad. My dad had a great ethic, and he knew the sooner that you embalmed somebody, the better they looked. And middle of the night, wouldn't matter, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it takes an hour to do it. He would do it right then to make sure they look best for the family.
Wow. That's yeah. I didn't even think about like how long a body has to sit right before it can be embalmed and presented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was very excited when I became 16 because I could drive, and I did my first solo pickup.
What do you mean solo pickup?
So when somebody dies, we have to go.
Oh my God, seriously.
So sometimes
Jesus.
this is the hospital. Sometimes it's a nursing home. Sometimes it's a residence if the coroner, pronounces them dead and they don't need an autopsy, whatever. So it's like 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, and I was all excited, kind of like a pilot. It was first solo flight.
Jeez.
And it was at Providence Hospital. And I get there and I check in. They say, oh, the patient is still up in the room on the 4th floor. Hello. Good. Don't have to go down the morgue.
Jesus.
This is 1
Yeah.
in the morning. So I go to the 4th floor, checking the nurses. station. They said, yeah, he's still in 423. Awesome. So we have like an ambulance cot
Mm-hmm.
that we use. And so I go into the room and he's on the bed and the wife's at the foot of the bed and she's just sobbing and crying. And I went and introduced myself. I'm Bob Ross with Ross Hollywood Chapel. So sorry for your loss. And I put the gurney next to the bed and I picked him up and pulled him over the gurney.
All by yourself?
All by myself. Like this.
He's still alive?
Head flops up. She goes, who'd you say you were with? Ross Hollywood Chapel. The mortuary? Yes, ma'am. He's not dead.
Oh, wow.
The guy in that bed was dead. They just took him out 5 minutes ago.
Oh, my God. So you grabbed the wrong guy.
About beat in my pants.
Oh.
That was my first clue that, maybe this isn't the career for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And it's kind of funny because I went into medicine and got awards for saving people's lives. And, my father puts his arm around me. Mother, your mother and I are so proud of you, Bob, and all the life-saving awards you've won. But son, you're bad for business.
Saving people.
Compliment you could get.
Saving too many people.
Yeah.
That's I haven't had too many experiences with the funeral homes and morticians, but that's the compassion and that daily brush with death, I think, is pretty, it definitely humanizes the experience, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. But I do have to tell you, when my dad was still alive, I used to tell people, I used to work for my dad. The undertaker? Yeah, on a commission basis. Yeah, I lost a patient this week, but I made $100. So,
Exactly.
just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, man, that's wild. So, I mean, when you were 16, 17, 18, you obviously didn't want to follow the family business. So where did you end up going from there? I mean, was it a career in medicine that you were always interested in?
No.
No.
Although, looking back, when I was like 6 years old, I just had a passion to help people.
That's good.
And so I would learn first aid, and I had a little siren on my bicycle. I'd ride around bandaging people up, even if they didn't need it, right?
Yeah.
So I had that in me, and I would go after school to a fire station and talk to those guys and sit in the ambulance. And, there was something about that I loved. But my grandfather was a very famous research chemist. Oh, my mom's dad. His brother, so between he and his brother, I think there are 150 patents.
Oh, really? Wow.
A lot of inventors. And Grandpa Sayer really instilled in me the love for science.
Mm.
And when I was in high school, my freshman year, there was a physics teacher that just made physics come to life.
And that's all it takes sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally made the shift. So when I went to college, I started as a double major in music and physics because I loved music. I wanted to continue with that, and I loved physics. But I found out that it's a 6-year program.
The physics program or the music
You
program?
do the double.
Oh, Jesus, really?
Because they're both from day one, right? And they both have afternoon labs.
So you can't do them both at the same time, man.
Yeah. So in my first week, I had to make a decision, music or physics.
And you dropped the music.
Well, my mom said, any choice you make, we'll support. Which, but if you get the physics degree, you'll never have to worry about a job.
That's true, yeah.
You could always keep up your music. And so that's what I did. So I sang in a bunch of groups, played trumpet in, the jazz band and the orchestra, all that kind of stuff. I made a commitment then to do, because with trumpet, once you get to a certain level, you have to practice every day.
Oh, really? It's that intense?
7 days a week.
Oh,
Can't take a day.
wow. That's a commitment. Yeah.
So, and when I was getting a degree in physics, and there was a program called Graduation with Distinction, which is like a mini PhD.
Okay.
And no one had ever accomplished that in physics. So it's kind of my challenge.
That sounds interesting, yeah.
So I did it. So it was like a mini PhD in nuclear physics. That was my focus on the research. Because you had a research committee, you had to do independent research. You had to write a dissertation. You had to defend your dissertation. So very
proper PhD program. Yeah. Proper. Yeah.
So when I was there, I found out about the field of medical physics. I'd never heard.
I'm not familiar with that either.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
And it turned out that there's a form of physics that specializes in all the applications of physics in medicine. A perfect example would be the MRI machine.
Okay.
that uses magnets.
Right.
That's physics.
Okay. Walk me through that.
So my understanding with the MRI is that when your body's exposed to a strong magnetic field, and things will flip to line up with the magnetic field of the MRI, and then when it turns it off, healthy cells will go back to where they were. Unhealthy cells will stay, and that's how the imaging takes place, where you can see
Right.
something abnormal.
Okay.
That's why it's kind of limited in what it can do. Sometimes a CAT scan is better than an MRI is for what it's trying to find. But even the CAT scan, that's using X-rays.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So there's a whole degree in this
Yes.
physics in medicine, and it's for the machines that are used to diagnose people, not necessarily for like the pharmaceuticals that we take into our body and stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So like nuclear medicine, we use radiation to image.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it, you can actually focus just on radiation safety, making sure the X-ray machines aren't leaking radiation.
That seems like an important job. Yeah.
But the part that really fascinated me was radiation therapy is an aspect of medical physics.
Okay.
So a physician would come and say, I want to treat this tumor, and this is my plan. And so a medical physicist would determine how to do that, and we would build blocks to protect organs, that weren't the primary target, because radiation causes a lot of damage.
Of course, yeah.
And and so I applied, and I got into Johns Hopkins and Harvard, and third one, which I won't mention right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I was excited, especially about Harvard. And so I took the red eye back.
Yeah.
Because, anyways. So, and I took a red eye, and I got sick flight.
Oh, that sucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just with my voice.
Oh.
So I get to Harvard, and I check in, and the administrator says, "Oh, Dr. So-and-so is so excited to see you. You're only one of 3 people they accepted."
Oh, my God. And you can't even talk.
And so he comes out, "Mr. Ross, it's so nice to meet you."
Yeah.
Look at his face like, we've made a terrible mistake. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And I actually chose another medical school program, mainly because Harvard was focused on research. They really wanted you to do research, and there's a need for that.
Sure.
Right. But I love people,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be in patient care. I wanted to treat people with cancer.
Yeah, you need to be in the practical side of it, dealing with people every day, right? Yeah. Okay. That's interesting, though, that Harvard would focus so much on research. I guess a lot of universities have their own like specialties, like some are research focused and some are practical use focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. I never thought of that, but it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so you did a whole program in healthcare, physics for healthcare.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, as part of my research, discovered that scleroderma is known as, progressive systemic sclerosis is a fancy term, but it's scleroderma,
Mm-hmm.
where healthy tissue turns into scar tissue.
Okay.
So their skin will become like leather.
Oh.
But so with their kidneys, it's a 100% fatal disease.
Sounds terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And I just had this intuitive hit that I wonder if it affects their thyroid gland. Because I've been studying thyroid gland function in newborn babies, and did research, and there was nothing on it. So that was my focus on my dissertation work,
Okay, that's great.
was to do that. And sure enough, discovered that it was affecting the thyroid gland in a way that no one knew. So it changed the treatment protocol across the world
Mm-hmm.
for scleroderma patients. Very exciting.
Okay.
And when I was there in the program, I was part of a research team that discovered one of the biggest breakthroughs probably ever in cancer therapy, and it's called the hyperthermia effect. So hyper meaning raising. So we found if you increase the temperature of cancer cells, it made them weak.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because that's all you probably heard. The challenge with cancer cells is really tough.
Yeah, I just know that, I just know that cancer is obviously very dangerous and it affects most people, but then also the treatments for cancer normally kill healthy cells and the cancer cells all at once, right? So it's not the best treatment. So everyone's looking for something that no one's really been able to put their finger on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and you kind of hit the head on the nail, or the nail in the head.
Yeah.
That obviously, if you make the cancer cells weaker, you don't have to use as much chemo or radiation.
Right. So it reduces the dosage. And yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. And it was pretty much suppressed.
Hmm.
Yeah. And later, as I learned more, it cut into profits.
Yeah, that's an issue, right? Like obviously it's hundreds of billions of dollars a year is in the cancer business. It'd be very sad to see people holding back like treatment advancement if it meant monetary value increases for other people. That's kind of sad.
Well, it's the concept. If it's the business of medicine, it's not really healthcare, because it's a for-profit business. Now there are benefits to that because you get great research and development, people trying to develop new things. The downside is, it's like a company wants the bottom line. They need profits to keep.
I wish like social media companies and healthcare companies could just figure out how to profit from us from being healthy and happy. It would make the world so much easier. Why do we have to be sick and have mental illness in order to satisfy the needs of the economy?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was so disappointed because, again, I got into medicine to help people.
Right. So that was an actual roadblock you hit is finding out this not cure, but a better way to treat people. But then it reduced billable hours and it reduced profits. And then it got binned or got hidden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes in the United States, and I have to be careful of what I say. And by the way, I'm not giving medical advice. My experience and opinion, always seek the opinion of a qualified healthcare professional to make any of these decisions.
Of course.
I forgot what I was going to say now.
Just what happened to you when you made that discovery?
Oh, yes.
That by heating up cancer cells makes them weaker, and then you need less chemotherapy to kill the.
Yeah.
But then, of course, less chemotherapy means less profits for the companies that make chemotherapy drugs.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
I'm just trying to keep track of it.
When brain cells die in public.
In public, I'm frozen. But no, this sounds like exactly like what every big business would do.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, since we were published, if you go anywhere in the world where it's not for profit, like East Asia, Germany, Mexico,
Canada, my home,
Canada, the first thing they'll do, walk in, because they'll heat your body up before any treatment.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, because, and I will say another thing that's very controversial.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Yeah.
But the key to medicine is to help the body heal.
Yeah.
So the challenge with chemoradiation is their focus is to kill the cancer cells. But did you know that we get cancer every day?
We get cancer every day?
Cancer cells are produced in our body every day, and the immune system detects it. That's why we need a strong immune system, and produces interferon, interleukin, antineoplasms that destroy cancer cells. That's what it was designed to do.
So even from like adolescence, we're getting cancer every day, but our body's able to deal with it.
Right. It's just a part of the biological process.
Okay, that's interesting because I always felt like some elements of our environment would make cancer potentially more present in our bodies. Like,
so the environment can affect the immune system.
Right. So the cancer's always already in our body, and then the environment around us affects our immune system, and then that's when the cancer grows kind of out of control.
Right. So stress will suppress the immune system. Not getting nutrients, like vitamin D, classic example. Vitamin D is kind of like the cement foundation of your nervous system. That's not good. In fact, I think that 85% of people that die with.
Yeah, I read that also. It's I mean, when you talk to, I mean, I had a lovely lady in here, a doctor, a few weeks ago, and she specializes in preventative medicine, right? So yeah, just the basic vitamins, nutrients, exercise, proper sleep, even just intaking enough water every day to make sure that your body is not dehydrating by itself. Like just all these basic things you can do to keep your immune system up and I guess keep the cancer at bay also.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was in the program and I was having what they call hypersomnia, the opposite of insomnia. I could fall asleep, but I couldn't wake up.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
No matter how much sleep I got, I would wake up as though it was the middle of the night, You get a call in the middle of the night, could be your mother calling, like, what, where am I? Who is, right?
Yeah.
It was getting worse and worse and worse.
This was a condition that you had.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
hypersomnia.
Hypersomnia. So I went and saw a neurologist, and he did EEG of the brain and CAT scan and all that. And it was just like in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I go for my results, and he says, well, Bob, I've got good news and bad news.
Give me the bad news first.
Yeah. I said, well, tell me the good news. Well, the good news is your EEG, the electrical activity of your brain, was abnormal. Abnormal, doc, that's not good. Well, compared to the bad news, it is.
Okay.
And then you put the CAT scan up on the x-ray viewer, and it says you have a brain tumor.
Oh, that's not the best news.
No. And it's the left temporal lobe that affects sleep, right, which would make sense why you were having these sleep issues.
So you were having sleep issues because of a tumor in your brain. That is the worst news of the good news, bad news. But I mean, how do you take that information from a doctor?
Well, fortunately for me, I treated myself like my patient. And so I was diving in, I was researching, all that. It was very helpful to cope with the denial. I had some great mechanisms of denial. I know.
But I mean, wouldn't you just get anxious and depressed? I mean, finding out that you have cancer, finding out that you have a tumor in your brain that's making you sleep abnormally?
Well,
I'm just,
yes.
the mental health issues around that alone are terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they became terrifying.
Mm.
Oh, by the way, he told me, because of where it's located, we can't really get at it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we did surgery, there's a good chance you could be a vegetable.
Paralyzed or dead or whatever.
So we're going to put you in an intensive care unit for 8 days. And he didn't tell me the actual things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Oh.
Drilled holes through my skull with no anesthesia. I mean, so they put probes right on my brain for 8 days. Yeah, that's when it hit. Oh, no more denying now, Bobby.
This is really happening. Yeah. And I mean, obviously you look great now. I mean, it was all successful.
So, at the end of the 8 days, they had their big conference with all the specialists, and they say, "We're stumped." What do you mean? He says, "Well, first off, the good news is it's not cancerous."
Oh, so it was what are they?
Benign.
Benign, yeah.
And the odd thing is, 8 days of testing you, it's not affecting your sleep.
That's strange.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I said, well, something is. Well, it's not that. So we're going to write you up in the medical journal because this is just so bizarre.
But he said it was pressing up against your left lobe, which is why, I mean, obviously you don't want a tumor in your head, I guess, in the first place. But then if it's affecting your sleep, so you're misdiagnosed from the beginning, but they did find the tumor.
So it wasn't misdiagnosed.
Oh.
So I go home, and again, I'm in graduate school, so my only social was going to church on Sunday because I was always at the hospital, always,
And you're what, like 25 at this stage?
Let me see. I think I was 20.
Okay.
24.
Yeah. And you're dealing with a brain tumor.
So I go home, and my Aunt Betty comes over to visit me. And she comes in and she says, we need to call the gas company. What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
She says, I smell gas. I don't smell any gas. Well, I smell gas, I'm calling. No, don't call. There's nothing. I'm calling. So she called the gas company. It turns out I had a gas leak.
In your house? Oh, wow.
Near the bedroom. It started so small I couldn't detect it, and got so big that's what was causing my hypersomnia.
Really? A gas leak? And so you're lucky you didn't have a cigarette before bed.
That's right.
Wow.
I was suffocating.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And then when they did follow-up testing on me, they said, it looks like you've had this since birth.
The tumor.
It's like it's a fluid-filled, and since you've had it since birth, your brain adapted, and
it's still in your brain because they can't get to it.
Right. And they shouldn't. It's not causing a problem.
That's wild. So it was the gas leak in your apartment that was causing your heavy sleeping?
Yep.
Because it was like being under, like you were drowning basically.
Well, not drowning, but oxygen levels.
Right. Which makes it hard to wake up. That is crazy. And to deal with all that in like your mid-20s.
Yes.
Mm.
So, and there were a lot of political things going on at the medical school I was at, and with my frustration,
Mm-hmm.
the whole program. I'd already finished my internship, 7 years there, 11 years total,
Mm-hmm.
and I walked away.
From the field entirely. Wow. So that whole experience just turned you off. I wonder how many doctors really understand like the business of medicine and really accept like how these companies are profit driven and how keeping us ill increases profits. I've got a crazy conspiracy theory, and it's not to diminish your story and the seriousness of your story at all, but sometimes when I'm having a drink with some friends, I'll make jokes because obviously the food industry in this country is disgusting, and like half of the stuff in the grocery store is just there to kill you. And I always made this joke that someday we're going to find out that like the entire food industry is owned by the entire healthcare industry just to keep the cycle moving. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like if some forensic accountant really wants to go at it, they can find some links, because the stuff we are eating and the quality of what we eat, and I've lived all around the world too. Like I've lived in China, I've lived in the Middle East, I was in Switzerland for a few years. Like the quality of food in those countries, the availability of like fresh food and stuff like that is incredible. But I mean, yeah, in general, in North America, the quality of food that most people are eating is pretty bleak. And of course, lower income households have to, maybe may or may not be able to afford better food, or maybe they're not eating enough vegetables, or they don't have enough knowledge of how to eat healthy, and then it's just diabetes heaven everywhere. It's so sad. Yeah.
Well, and that's why the physician you interviewed, who specializes in what we call natural medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a absolutely a purpose for prescription drugs, especially for emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole goal is to help the body heal,
Mm-hmm.
not just mask its symptoms. And that was the interesting thing that I discovered in the medical school system, that they were focused on diagnosis and treatment.
Oh, really? Yeah, because if you figure out what the cause is, then you lose the revenue for the treatment.
That may have been. I can't make any assumptions.
Yeah.
Right? So, and my example of that I thought of is, let's say you moved into an apartment, and unbeknownst to you, there was a piece of radioactive cobalt that was underneath the floor in your bedroom, and that gives you cancer. So you go get treated, and takes care of the cancer. You're now cancer-free. But you go back to your apartment, and now you're exposed to the cause again.
Mm-hmm. So it's just you're just constantly getting sick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you remove the cause, that makes it also easier for the body to heal. Anyways.
Yeah. How do we break this system? Like I feel like the government should give out, like, the United States government spends billions of dollars fighting wars all around the world, right? What if they just gave a grant to anyone that solves cancer that is big enough that would outsize the profits of cancer treatment by keeping people ill? Like what if, then there would be like a real effort, or a real kind of maybe financial purpose to end such a terrible disease, right? Instead of just keeping us all ill and keeping us all in the system.
That's the big challenge because of the financial pushback.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And especially here, like big pharma is so powerful and funding all these campaigns and all these politicians to keep things quote unquote the same. And I was chatting with someone else the other day too, and they were telling me just how the insurance systems work here and how the healthcare system is really kind of held hostage by the big insurance companies, and the insurance companies, this whole kind of relationship is quite challenged.
Yes. Well, to that point, a lot of insurance won't pay for natural medicine and even preventative stuff.
which seems insane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you give a person the right treatment, then minimizes their hospital stay. Insurance company pays for that.
Mhm.
Right? Minimizes the medications they're going to need, especially long term. So there's financial benefit to doing that. And for some reason, that
Yeah, but I just feel like the more, because I guess the more you get sick, the more your premiums go up. So the more nights you have in a hospital every year, I'm sure the next year you probably have to pay more for your insurance, right? So even though they're paying out more for you to stay longer in the hospital, they're going to get you next year. But I don't know. I'm just, I'm new to the United States. I've only I moved here about 6 months ago, and yeah, and I've been abroad for 25 years. I left Canada when I was like 22, and lived in China for 18 years, and then in Dubai kind of during COVID, and in Switzerland a bit, and then now here. And I've just seen the way countries operate, and I see the way healthcare works, and I see the things that are available in grocery stores, and the way people eat, and the way people exercise, and the way different countries teach children how to stay healthy, how to eat healthy, how to exercise, how to do things outdoors, and and all of this leads up to preventative healthcare in some way, shape, or form, except here. I mean, Beverly Hills, okay, maybe, yeah, people are a little bit more switched on here, but it's, for aesthetic reasons perhaps, but yeah, this country and the education system around just preventative healthcare, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So when I walked away, doors just flew open for my music and comedy. Because again, I played trumpet every day. I practiced every single day. I sang in groups. I played in groups, even in graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, Lord, I guess this is the direction that I'm going.
Well,
it's great because I loved it.
Well, you just survived a tumor in the head, so life change is in order, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so when I was in intensive care,
how'd you get away with that?
So I had a special mute that really muted it. It sounded a lot. Of course, when the neurologist found out I was doing that, he said, like, "This is my life."
Yeah.
That pressure in your brain is gonna. I've been playing, since I was.
If you die playing the trumpet, that's probably a beautiful thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I've got this big thing on my head. I'm all bandaged up because they had to keep those probes in for 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting on the hospital bed. And I got a picture taken.
Mm-hmm.
That I sent it to my trumpet coach.
Nice.
And he made it 8x10 and put it up on the wall for his students to see when they came in.
Oh.
And they would always look at it, but never ask anything. They finally, after several lessons, say, "I asked you about that."
Mm.
They would explain, well, the deal was with me. They said, so if Bob
can do it every day for 8 days in intensive care, I'm sure you kids can go home and finish your lessons for today.
See, that was my contribution to learning the bass.
I wonder what happened to those probes in your head when you were playing music. I wonder how music affects your brain, and whether those probes were in any position to record that. Because, it definitely, listening to music and stuff like that definitely affects your brain waves, and different kind of music affects you in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm curious what was going on with you when you were playing the instrument you love and the music you love, and whether that had any healing power or any kind of, or what it was doing neurologically to you.
Actually, that would be fascinating. Because they recorded it all, 24 hours a day.
Yeah. We got to go back like 30 years and get all those records. Investigative reporting right here.
That's right.
So after surviving a brain tumor scare and being kind of disenfranchised or disinterested or just disgusted with the healthcare industry, you moved to comedy, which seems like a natural transition.
Yeah. So sometimes I'd be hired just as a trumpet player for studio work or live.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just as a singer, and sometimes just as a comedian. My favorite was when I would get hired as entertainment, like in corporate shareholder meetings, because then I got to do everything.
That's amazing.
Voices and accents and impersonations.
It's the best, isn't it? That sounds like it kind of reminds me of like Steve Martin way back in the day. Yeah, he used to like play some instruments. He used to kind of sing.
Yep.
He used to do
Yep.
comedy. He used to dance. Like Steve Martin before he became famous in films was a live performer, right? But he wasn't just a stand up. Like he did everything, and he was way off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my mom, one of the things she said to all of us kids, if you're going to learn an instrument, you have to learn all the styles of music, not just the style you like. I play guitar as well, and I just want to play Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And what a gift. Just because you turn professional and somebody says, hey, I got an orchestra gig. Oh, I don't do orchestra. I don't do classic.
Yeah.
Your phone's not going to ring. They want somebody versatile.
Right.
And that turned out to be such a big gift. And I remember I got a call to sing on an album. And I checked in and to the producer, and I said, I'm Bob Ross. You're Bob Ross?
It's a great musician name.
And what a great name, like the famous painter, Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Little did my parents know they're going to give me a famous name before I even became.
Is Bob short for Robert? Okay.
Growing up, the only time I heard Robert was.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, that's dangerous.
Remember my middle name, I was getting a spike.
You're running in the other direction.
So, anyways, he said, well, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? You're white. Yeah, I always have been.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why is that a problem? Oh, this is a black gospel album. Oh, that's not a problem.
Mm-hmm. You couldn't say that in 2024.
And I said, well, who recommended? Because I knew it was a recommendation for this album project. And he said, well, Andre Crouch, who was one of the biggest black gospel artists in history, right, music history. And I played trumpet with him, sang, we were friends. And I said, well, do you think Andre would recommend me if I didn't have the chops? No, but I understand you. I understand your concern.
Yeah.
Tell you what, we'll just take one pass.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not thrilled, you don't even have to pay me my gas money.
Oh, yeah. That's confident. Yeah.
So, thanks, Mom. So did the one pass, and he's in the booth, and he pushes a button. Bob, you're on my first call list now.
There you go. No, not bad. Where geographically, where are you in the United States at this time?
Los Angeles.
Okay, so when did you finish? When did you know you were done with the medical profession, and when did you come back to LA?
So my undergraduate work was down in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
and then my graduate work was up here in LA. That's what brought me up to LA.
Okay.
And I think it was 85 when I went music and comedy full time. Traveled all over the country and just loved it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and being able to perform live is such a gift, isn't it? Yeah.
Want to hear my favorite medical joke?
I would love to. Yes, hit me.
So a guy goes to the doctor. He's not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor examines him, runs a bunch of lab tests. He calls him 3 days later. He says, hey, your lab results came back and I've got bad news and worse news. Well, doc, what's the bad news? Well, I'm looking at your lab results. It says you got 24 hours to live.
Oh, okay.
24 hours to live. Doc, what could be worse than that? Well, they came back yesterday and I forgot to call you.
So you got about 5 minutes. That's tough.
Isn't that tough?
Yeah.
Yes. When I was like 15, I noticed that I could mimic voices. So not only quality of voices, but also accents, characters, even Disney characters. I could just do that.
That's probably from your skill also too of being able to pick up music.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You should go to China because learning Chinese is very so I was learning Chinese back in the day, and I was learning, and I was in a group of about 5 people, and the other 4 people were all musicians. And because their ability to pick up music, pick up tone, pick up pitch, all this stuff, they were able to grasp the musical notes of the Chinese language because there's 4 tones, and you got to use the tones, and you really got to hit them, or else the word means something completely different. Yeah. And these musicians that I was with picked up the language so much faster than I did because I'm like tone deaf. Yeah, and it was such a struggle for me. Yeah, something to think about.
Something to think about. Well, and I found out I could pick up accents. I did when I was in college. It was like a foreign exchange program for a summer. Studied British literature. Awesome. We traveled all over, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, England. And by the time I left, I could fool Brits.
Oh, that's not bad.
Hello, and a pleasant good day to you, sir. Lovely. In fact, for a couple of years, I worked as a chauffeur because I needed a job that I could work unlimited hours. And I won't tell you the whole story, but it's a great story. But anyways, why I was doing that,
Not for the podcast.
well, I produced a project, I'll just say it. So I produced a project. It was a personalized Bible story tapes for children based on the best children's Bible story book award recipient. And again, I did orchestrated and voices and all this. And I'm in the studio with a live orchestra. And I get a phone call that the investors, and they had a textile mill company, went, there was some disaster before the money was transferred.
Uh-oh. So now you're on the hook for this studio session and maybe a lot more?
All the musicians, a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's why I was looking for something I could work on in hours. But I would be very tempted when I was chauffeuring to use an accent the whole night. Well, surely be going into pleasant good day to you, sir. What do you have in you here?
Yeah.
The other night, well, it was very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
What did you do to Bob, my chauffeur?
That'd be interesting, actually, like just creating a character every night, a different one every night for the job. And
Before we had caller ID,
yeah,
I would mimic my voice, hello, hello.
that's pretty funny. That'd be a good way to do it. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, I actually got to work with Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And I was a set medic there. So tempted to do him to him.
To do Arnie to Arnie, yeah.
So this is my impersonation of Arnold Schwarzenegger learning to take the stock market. So he's looking at his computer screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the prices going up, and the prices go down. Like the money in my account when I was governor of California, and the people and the taxes and things, and this is such a thing that other than that.
That'd have been great if you went up to him and did that. Yeah, he would have loved it.
I might not still be alive, but that would have been good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow. He's such a legend, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, very nice guy.
Mm.
Very nice guy.
Apparently, he owns like half of Venice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there's a beautiful documentary about him on Netflix, and he got into property and property development way before he got into movies. And when he was doing all his Mr. Universe stuff, he was he bought a property, he bought a rental income property before he even had his own first home. Like that's how kind of focused he was. Yeah, so he's like, and there's been people around town that have like done business with him over the years. They say he's absolutely brilliant when it comes to business and finances and stuff like that. So I mean, we all see him as this big muscle-bound, action hero, but incredibly wealthy and incredibly successful in his other business ventures as well. Slight aside for the Arnold Schwarzenegger tangent.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. I did not know that.
Yeah. No, there's a very nice documentary about him on Netflix. It just came out like last year. It's like a 3-part piece, but it does talk about, his time before he was a movie star.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I love doing the music and comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1987, I found out about an EMS reserve program for EMTs with the Pasadena Fire Department. And so I applied. Took about a year.
EMT is
emergency medical technician.
Okay.
Right. And it was a volunteer thing. So I volunteered all 36 years now with Pasadena Fire. Haven't been paid a penny.
Mm-hmm.
But that gave me the flexibility to keep doing my music and comedy.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Because if you're hired full time, there's a shift schedule locked into. So it's been the best of both worlds, really, it has. So we do all the medical coverage for Rose Bowl, not all the medical coverage, but we're the core. They have paid personnel as well, like Rose Bowl events, concerts, World Cup soccer, music festivals, usually football games. So a lot of great experience.
So you're on site there in case something crazy. So have you saved a lot of people's lives?
Yes.
Well, that's got to be rewarding.
Phenomenal. In fact, I get a lot of intuitive hits to be at a certain place at a certain time to save somebody who might have died of.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Bit of a sixth sense of keeping people safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was there was an event at the Rose Bowl, and my assignment was the south end of the ball. And I hear the still small voice, go to the north end of the bowl. Well, that doesn't make any sense because we're supposed to be at the south. If it doesn't make sense, that's usually a good.
Yeah, that's usually a tangent you need to follow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we jump in our rescue cart. We drive off about 3/4 of the way, and I just get a piece. We'll stop right here, right here. Within 20 seconds, where we stop, and within 20 feet, a guy drops to the ground.
From a higher floor or from
Just going bam. Just I turn to my partner. Well, I guess this is why we're here. Woohoo!
And you get to, and what was his particular ailment? Do you remember?
So he was like 50, I think 50 years old, maybe 52. Great shape, buffed. He was conscious and breathing just like you are. At about 30 seconds, his heart stopped and he died right in my arms.
Holy shit.
So I started CPR on him and got out the defibrillator, analyzed his heart rhythm. He was in ventricular fibrillation. So when you hear about a lot of VFib, it's just like the heart quivering like a bowl of jello. So if you could look at it, it's doing this, but it's not pumping anything, no pulse. So no blood is going to the...
So this guy just had a heart attack in front of you.
Well, it wasn't a heart attack.
But his heart stopped.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? So we shock him, we convert him back to a normal EKG heart rhythm on the first shot. And normally people are unconscious for hours. 3 minutes later, he's sitting up, trying to get up.
Oh, wow.
Even the cops are backing up like, oh, I've never seen that before. It's like Lazarus, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Lazarus. Well, it turned out that he had a mechanical defect with his heart. Didn't know he had.
Yeah.
Had no heart disease, no heart attack. His arteries are perfectly clear. He was in the peak of health. And the cardiologist who treated him said, with that condition, it's a 95% death.
Really? Like at some stage in your life,
If your heart stops, it's 95. Well, there's 95% of the time we can't save you.
Because of that defect.
He said the only reason you're alive is somebody witnessed your heart stopping, instantly started CPR, and shocked you within a...
And if you had been where you were supposed to be, he probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, because someone would have had to have found him, probably called 911, goes to dispatch us, and then by that time, the party's over.
Oh my God. I mean, to have to, I applaud, emergency medical professionals and emergency responders, because they see some crazy stuff. I don't think I'd be able to see that on a daily basis and process it in a healthy way that would allow me to live, a functional life. I feel like it would paralyze me if I was, saving people and witnessing these tragedies on a daily basis. It's not for me.
It's got to be in your blood.
I think so, right? It does. Like I would probably wear it too heavy. Yeah.
What I love about it, especially, is that that's
yeah, emergency treatments. Yeah,
and we literally can snatch someone from the jaws of death.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the financial implication for that is to save that person's life.
Well, and actually, we don't worry about the financial.
Yeah,
and if they can't pay the ambulance bill, that doesn't affect the firefighter paramedics at all.
Right. You just have to keep that person alive. Yeah. That's the purest form of medicine, isn't it? Yeah. And you've been doing that for how many years?
36.
36 years.
Yeah, we have a new fire chief. A couple years ago, he came and he met me and he said, "Oh, so you're Bob Ross?" I go, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, you're a legend. That good or bad?" He said, "No, I've heard really good things about you."
Yeah.
He says, 36 years. Well, at that time, I think it was 34. He says, "No one's ever volunteered that long on the fire department." I said, "Well, thank you, sir." So, Chief, since you're new and you got all this authority, you can name a fire station after me?
Oh, that would be nice. Did they?
He says, "Actually, it's in the works."
Oh, wow. That's nice.
Chief, I was just kidding. No, it is. It's the Bob Ross Memorial Station. Memorial.
You're still alive.
That means I have to wait to...
Yeah.
My family can wait. There's no rush. Yeah. And I knew he had a good sense of humor, and we were going to get along just fine.
Oh, that's
He's
funny.
A great chief. Really, just a wonderful.
Yeah. So what are you doing? I mean, okay, so you left medicine. You went into live performance, stand-up, music, singing. How long did that go? I mean, obviously you're still doing it, but was it like really, really full-time, or was it always in the background of doing other things?
It was full-time to start with, but music and entertainment, all that stuff comes in waves, and sometimes that's fine. up is big enough, right? And other times it wasn't. So I was looking for another wave. And so I actually started a company, Comedy CPR, to teach CPR and first aid.
In a comedic way.
Yep.
Really?
So my
That's wild.
Fire department stories. Stories are the best ways to learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
With comedy, it turns out when you're learning something in a fun and relaxed environment, your memory can go up 8.
Why don't they figure that out in high school?
And you know what? Looking back, that was the deal about my physics teacher.
He was funny.
He was funny,
Yeah.
and would engage you. So you're just not listening to a lecture like, oh, okay, that's an electron. And right? It was, just wonderful. So
Teaching is really a performance. Like, it really needs to be a performance in order to maintain the attention spans of increasingly dwindling attention spans students. Like, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah.
And a lot of people are required to take the training. They need it for their job, so they don't really want to be there.
All right. Give me back my Saturday. Yeah.
And of course, my goal is to get them to laugh. Once I get them to laugh, then they usually open up.
Break down those defenses. Yeah.
And I have people say, I've taken this 5-6 times. This is the first time I actually feel confident in using my skills and know what I'm doing.
Oh, that's wild.
Because for me, that was always the key. If I knew why I was doing something, it was a breeze. If you're memorizing flowcharts, that's tough. That's really tough for the brain.
Easy. So okay, so you're an emergency medical professional. You're a comedian, musician, singer. You walked away from a role in traditional healthcare. Traditional cancer therapy. So where are you now? What's going on these days?
So
yeah, you got a lot of jobs.
I have a lot of jobs.
Yeah,
6 in total, actually.
I think that's nice, though. I mean, because you get to touch a lot of people in a lot of different industries, and you get to use your brain in a lot of different ways. And I think that's the key to staying young and enjoying life. I think, because I feel like if you just get stuck doing the same thing every day, I think it kills you slowly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and as I mentioned, stories are very helpful. I want to mention this before we move on. Stories are great to remember what to do. So we got a call for an 18-year-old female at the Hilton Hotel with an umbrella stuck up her nose.
Up her nose?
She was running to the bus stop, tripped, and the metal tip right up the nose.
That's awful.
Isn't that awful? We're at the fire station when the call came in. We looked at each other. Where's the keys? We're not available. Out of service. Send somebody else.
I don't think I could look at that.
Well, and I don't know why dispatch didn't just say respond to an injury.
Yeah, they had to tell you and describe it over the yeah.
You get there, your brain is focused. So even if it's gross, it is really not that gross when you see it because you're focused on stopping bleeding and stabilizing, right? So it's like, oh man. So I get at the Hilton Hotel. We're walking down the hallway. I'm walking like this. Oh, I don't want to look at this thing.
No.
When I got to the patient, I accidentally hit the button on the umbrella.
Oh, did it slice her nose open?
Got a clean sinuses now. I tell you.
Whoa. Oh my God. No, but still, like, that's awful.
But unfortunately, she pulled it out before we got there. Wasn't that good?
No, because she probably did it even worse and didn't take care and probably did more damage trying to take it out by herself.
She took the cork out of the dam and had a gusher.
Oh my God.
She could have bled to death before we got there.
Yeah. Injuries in the head bleed so much more than anywhere else in the body because you have so much more blood in the head, and people don't seem to know that. Like, if you've got something stuck in this part of your body, leave it there.
Yep.
Because the moment you pull it, it's like a dam bursting. Yeah.
So Ryan, with impaled objects, we leave them in or take them out?
I think we leave them in.
Human nature is you want to pull it out. The patient's got to take that thing out. After a class I taught.
Unless you're John Wick, right? Unless you're like Keanu Reeves, and you got to like get into an animal veterinary hospital and you use some staple gun to solve the problem. But we're all not that industrious.
Exactly. Well, after a class once I had a guy come up and say, Shabam, if a guy was like stabbed with a knife in his chest and somebody pulled the knife out before you got there, you should stick it back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn it a few times, make sure it's in there real good. Like, maybe try to feel yes, Your Honor, I was just trying to stop his bleeding 17 times.
Jesus, yeah. It's, it makes sense, though, to leave it in there until you can find a medical professional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember in the a couple of years ago, the tempo of CPR for chest compressions was the same as ha, 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 stay alive, stay alive.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And so they would have it on YouTube videos and so forth. Now, the other song that was the same tempo that I love to sing out loud, of course, another one bites the dust, another one bites the dust.
Less useful for CPR.
Bob, I just came back to punch your lights out, man.
So the rhythm of CPR is connected to a song.
Well, it turns out they needed to speed it up a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
So now the tempo is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So if you go too slow, you're not building enough pressure. If you go too fast, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, there's not enough time for the heart to fill up with blood. So with CPR, right, the heart's not pumping.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing for them what they can't do for themselves.
Right.
That's why I open their airways, the ABCs. B, I breathe oxygen in them. And C, I will manually squeeze that blood out of the heart. You squeeze it, come all the way back up. The heart relaxes, pulls blood back into it. After 30 compressions, we've used up most of the oxygen. It just repeats.
Wow. And that's how you save people's lives. Okay.
That's something.
Yeah, I've never taken a CPR class. I will. We'll have to lock that down.
You can be a heckler.
No, I mean, I'm curious to learn. Like, I love learn. Like, that's why I started this podcast. Like, I'm just interested in everything. So, I mean, why wouldn't I be interested in saving people's lives too? I should probably learn how to do that.
Well, and part of this is how important it is what you say around somebody who's unconscious.
Oh, because they can still hear you?
Yes.
The subconscious mind is active.
Still active. In fact, even in a coma, sometimes the person can hear you, but they just can't move their fingers like you're asking them to. But they can hear you. And yet what was said, especially when I was in the medical school program, what was said around people, and oh, he's going to be dead in 3 hours.
Yeah. Or that fucking asshole.
Crazy making.
Yeah.
And even if people are clinically dead, their heart has stopped. Some people remember when they come back, some people don't. But those that do say the same thing every time, regardless of their religious upbringing, even if they're raised atheists. They say is, Bob, when I died, my spirit left my body, floated up about ceiling level. I was looking down at my body on the ground, and they'll point. So you were doing chest compressions. Man, you were wailing on my chest. Did you have to push that hard? You did airway management, whatever that is.
So they're just watching it all happen to them. And that's a real thing.
A real thing.
Wow.
Yep.
I need to find someone for the podcast who's been clinically dead and come back. That would be interesting. Yeah. Hmm.
So, for instance, at the cardiac arrest that I witnessed,
mm-hmm.
when I'm doing my chest compressions, I talk to the patient, and where am I looking? Up, because that's where he's looking down from. By the way, it's proof for spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Proof. I think we're just flesh and bone. No, we are spiritual beings in a flesh body.
A meat suit.
So, a heat suit, which is so cool. So as I'm doing my chest compressions, I go, hey, buddy, I didn't know who he was. Hey, buddy, there's a reason I'm here. I was sent here. It's not your time. God's going to do something big in your life. Man, you got to come back. You got to come back. You got to come back. If I have a person old enough to be a grandparent, guess who I talk about? Grandkids. Yeah. The driving force in the...
Yeah. And for all the crazy pet people out there, you got to talk about their cats or their dogs.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and even, we'll pull cats and dogs out of fires, and we have special devices that we can use to get oxygen and do CPR on them.
Yeah. I was reading a statistic the other day. I mean, I don't know if it leads to anything in this conversation, but I'll throw it out there anyways. It's like the amount of people who die in home fires who go back in for their pets is significant. I don't know what percentage it is, but it's not an ignorable statistical, number. Like it's quite massive. I mean, obviously people would go back in for their children or something like that, but their pets. People go back into burning buildings to save their pets, and I would probably do the same thing. Like it's that connection's crazy.
Yeah. So, and I'm still doing the comedy CPR.
Mm-hmm.
It's comedycpr.com.
There you go. I'll put all these links at the end of the podcast too, so people can find you. But so wow. Emergency medical professional, stand-up comedian, musician, singer, comedy CPR. So you're teaching people how to do CPR. Okay.
Yeah. And first aid and be it blur.
And then all that good stuff. And then what else are you up to? You said you had 6 professions. Yeah.
So I needed another wave.
Mm-hmm.
So about, I think 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I started working as a motion picture set medic.
That's interesting. So, every motion picture, every film that's being made, like feature film, television show, everything, you have to have a medic on set.
Commercials, music videos, because it's a very dangerous environment. We're running live wires from generators, people up on ladders,
Mm-hmm.
guys fall off ladders, get electrocuted, we'll have medical emergencies.
So that's a law that you have to have a medical professional on site. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I've only filmed in like third world countries in the middle of nowhere, so we were slack on some of the rules, but because we were in a jungle somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and it's been a great experience. I've been able to work on The Amazing Race, Criminal Minds, CSIs, SEAL teams, SWAT. I was lead medic on American Ninja Warrior for, I think, 4 seasons.
Oh, wow. These are some pretty exciting.
So busy on that show.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they bring me in because of my fire department experience
Mm-hmm.
for high-risk stunts. And I did 2 of the Star Wars. I also worked on Jackass 4.
Oh, wow. That must have been busy. So for the Star Wars movies, for example, if they shoot for like 30 days, you're there every day for 30 days?
So they'll have a regular medic, set medic, that will be there all the time. And then they'll bring in additional medics if they're like more background
Mm-hmm.
than one person can handle, or they're shooting on the studio and they're also shooting in location.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to have someone to both sites.
Right.
And I liked doing that kind of as the on call as opposed to being stuck. Now, American Ninja Warrior, I was the guy whole time.
Mm-hmm. That's wild. That's great, though. That's exciting.
Oh, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's better to be the emergency medical professional on site than to get your ass kicked in one of these game shows, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, that's wild. So that's how it's interesting that you came into the entertainment space through the medical profession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. In fact, I was working on a movie, very famous actress, can't tell you who, obviously. And we just finished the scene, and she goes to the dressing room. And about 10 minutes later, production says, "Hey, Bob, can you check on so-and-so? She's not feeling well." Really? I just saw her 10 minutes ago. She looked fine. So I think maybe in digestion, allergies, of that nature.
Sure.
Knock on the door. No response. I go in. "Hey, it's Bob Ross, the set medic. Are you okay? You all right?" Nothing.
Oh, wow. That's kind of creepy.
"You okay?" Nothing. "She's unconscious." "What?"
Was she on the ground?
"No, she was laying on the couch."
Oh.
So opened her airway, tilted her head back. She wasn't breathing.
Oh, shit.
27 years. But she still had a pulse. So that's A, B, checking breathing.
Yeah.
C, and then I do for them what they can't do for themselves. First thing, of course, I activated 911,
Mm-hmm.
just so you and your listeners especially know. Here's an example. If we saw a child get hit by a car,
Jesus. Okay. Yeah.
and you came in to a building that had land-based phones,
Mm-hmm.
okay? We just saw a child hit by a car. You're at 911. What's your emergency? What would you say?
Just saw a child get hit by a car.
Exactly.
All right.
That may have doubled or tripled the time to get,
Why is that?
because the fire department does not answer 911 calls.
And only the fire department deals with children?
No, only the fire department deals with medical.
Oh, really?
It's the police that answer 911.
Well, that doesn't seem like a well set up system.
Actually, it was a good idea because 90% of 911 calls are for the police.
Right. Okay. So when it's an injury or you see someone in an accident, it goes to the fire department.
It goes to the police. Every 911 call.
But then they channel it.
So what you have to say is, "I have a medical emergency. Please transfer me."
Wow, that requires a lot of knowledge of how the system works.
Yes, and people don't know that, right? And
I didn't know that.
And the police dispatchers want to help. They can dispatch, police officers to make the scene safe and, help that. But if they hang up from you and then they call us, it's like that third-party call. Well, were they breathing? I don't know. I didn't ask. Are they trapped?
Mm.
Right? So you just say, if they do that, say, I don't need the police. Please push the button and transfer me to the fire department.
And the fire department will get an ambulance and that whole thing?
So the key with the fire department dispatches, they're all medically trained.
Oh, really? I didn't.
CPR over the phone. We deliver babies over the phone.
Oh,
And some fire departments, like Pasadena, we have our own paramedic ambulances.
oh, okay. That's interesting.
West Hollywood is covered by LA County Fire. So their paramedics are like a pickup truck. They call it a squad. And then they use private ambulance to actually transport the person to the.
Okay. Good to know.
But it's always going to be orchestrated by the fire department.
That's interesting. I didn't know the fire department was such a central hub in these kinds of accident reportings.
Yes, yes. And plus the dispatcher, fire department dispatcher, can determine what level of priority you have, what equipment is needed. Do you need the jaws of life? Are you trapped?
Yeah.
Not every fire engine carries that.
Right. It's, what to bring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, from cell phones, most of those calls go to CHP.
What's CHP?
California Highway Patrol.
Right. But if you're on a street in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood, why would it go to Highway Patrol? It makes no sense.
So when cell phones first came out, they were hardwired to the car.
I remember that. Yeah.
Called car phones because you had to be in your car. So it made sense. You're in your car, CHP.
Yeah.
But now,
30 years ago.
thank you. Yeah, but that's how the system was set up.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, it's gotten better in terms of GPS, locations, and so forth. But what you need to say is, I have a medical emergency. Please transfer me to the Pasadena Fire Department. You name the city you're in.
Because they won't know right away.
They might not.
And that's California State Highway Patrol?
So it's, California Highway Patrol. We're in the,
So what is, does that, does that call go to,
it's a dispatch center.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in the state capital?
No, it's actually, they have several throughout the state.
It doesn't go like that to Sacramento?
No, there's one like near the 10 and the 110 freeway in downtown. That's one of their
main
their
things.
spots.
That's interesting.
So, and people got rid of their home phones. So their house is on fire. All they have is their cell phone. They call 911. They're calling the CHP.
Yeah. I don't have a home phone.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it got so bad that some cities, I know LA is doing it, Pasadena has done that your call may go to the local police department. So in Pasadena, it might go to Pasadena PD.
That's useful because then at least they can coordinate locally, right?
And again, you say, please transfer me to the Pasadena. You always say the same thing every time.
Right.
No matter who answers the phone. It's always going to be a police agency, which is great, right? There's a shooting, stabbing, something where safety is involved. We want to make sure they're coming, and we'll make sure they're coming too.
Right.
So,
but if it's an accident or something like that, where someone's needing medical assistance, that goes through the fire department.
Right.
Okay. Well, I just learned something new.
See?
Thank you for that.
Apologize for teaching you something that might be helpful.
Well, I need to learn how to live in this country and in this city, so this is how we're dealing with emergency responses.
Yeah, I had no idea. We were 6 months. That's awesome. Well, welcome.
Yeah, so it's been nice.
Getting back to that story, so I activated the 911 system. Hey, I have a 27-year-old female, not breathing, rescue breathing in progress.
Right, we're back on the movie set now.
Yeah. And some people say I have a tangent brain.
I'll bring you back. Don't worry.
Right. I noticed a little buzzer on the thing. Oh, he's bringing me back. Oh, yes. I'm getting off topic. So, again, I opened her airway. She wasn't breathing, but she still had a heartbeat. Now, once you stop breathing, you have 90 seconds before.
Right. That's like holding your breath.
Right. Choking. You're choking. You don't get that out in 90 seconds. You run out of all the oxygen. Your heart stops. So I just did the letters she couldn't. Kept her airway open, breathed for her, and she was circulating. Right? Actually got her breathing again. Well, it turned out she was given a prescription. She had hurt her back the week before and given a prescription for an opioid, which she needed. But the doctor wrote a prescription for someone almost 200 pounds. She weighed like 90.
So the doses were way too much for her body to manage, and she OD'd.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So morphine is a very famous one. So this much morphine will take away your pain. That much morphine will make you stop.
Really, it's that kind of minute misdiagnosis can actually kill you, or misdosage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the big challenge is fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine.
Yeah, I watched this crazy documentary on fentanyl. It looks terrible.
Tiny.
Yeah. Well, it's chemically produced, right? Morphine is at least a plant that's been chemically altered. Yeah, but morphine is like 100% chemical drug from the fentanyl. Sorry, 100% artificially created. Yeah.
So that's when the Narcan comes in. So
What's a
Narcan is an anti-narcotic. So they call it Narcan. And it reverses the effects of narcotics sometimes in a minute.
what it was, like a syringe?
As a nasal spray. At first it was a syringe. You had to draw it up in a syringe and not start an IV, right?
Mhm.
Now it's in a nasal spray. The FDA recently made it over the counter.
Oh, really?
Yep. So, because there's no side effects. So if a person, and never give it to somebody who is still breathing. Don't do CPR on somebody who's breathing. Always check to see if they're breathing first. They have to have an airway, check for breathing, call 911. You don't even have to check for pulse. If they're not breathing, call 911 and start CPR, because
Mhm.
almost always they are in cardiac arrest. So as that's going on, 2 squirts in one spray and pinch off the other nostril, right? Now you're doing CPR, that's circulating through the body, and it literally reverses the effects, and you'll see it'll start to move. Now, if there's a chance it's heroin and they start to move.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
You see the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, so
That was what we wanted.
I grabbed you by your ankles and pulled you back.
How does this little nasal spray reverse the effects of a drug overdose, though? That seems incredible. I had no idea this technology even existed.
It has to do with the receptors for the narcotics, and it basically takes the receptors. It like pushes them out of their receptors and takes their place.
That's crazy. And that's just over the counter. Huh.
Yeah.
So that's really remarkable that this poor actress had her dosage misdiagnosed, and it almost killed her. Yeah. And she needed those medications because she's working, she's acting, and she had a back injury, and she probably needed those pills just to get through the day. And her medical professional that she trusted. Yeah. Did anything happen to that doctor?
I don't know.
Yeah. Are there any ramifications for misdiagnosing like that and putting people in a near-death experience for no reason?
Yeah, they'll call that malpractice.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously part of your job, is to give the right dosage of anything.
Yeah. That's terrifying. Yeah. I also feel like, I mean, it's really hard, but the U.S. society is a real pill-popping society. It's a fix me now, not fix me later kind of place. And I just feel like everyone just wants to pop pills for everything and just
microwave medicine.
Well,
I want it now.
Yeah, like Amazon Prime, right? Like, you just give it to me now. I need it yesterday. But it's I mean, it's obviously created great industries and stuff like that, but with people's impatience, forgetting things or buying things or obtaining services. But I just feel like around healthcare and like repairing yourself or preventative medicine, even, like, it's a timely, it can't be rushed, right? Yeah.
Well, and that's the challenge, because it used to be people would take fentanyl by itself on purpose for the high.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very careful. But now drug dealers are putting it inside Adderall, which is stimulants, kids like high school kids like that to help study.
Right.
And because they buy it on it.
Right. That's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. They take it. If you don't find them.
It's always funny. I was reading something the other day, and they were saying, like, how China and the United States are competing, as the two biggest global economies in the world. And of course now, they're having these military arguments, is China going to invade Taiwan? Is the United States going to defend Taiwan? All this stuff. But someone just came out and said, China makes the two things in the world that are completely destroying American minds. And I was like, what are those things? And the guy said TikTok and fentanyl, because the base chemical for fentanyl is actually produced in China, and then according to this article, it's shipped into Mexico, where it's mixed in with other chemicals, and then from Mexico it comes into the United States illegally through the southern border, and then even up to Canada. Canada has a massive fentanyl problem. Yeah. There's a fantastic documentary about the fentanyl problem in Vancouver, which already had a terrible heroin drug problem. Like, there's entire I think it's East Vancouver or West Vancouver. I think it's East Vancouver is just like a dead zone of junkies.
Oh.
have to correct me if find that. But yeah, I think it's East Vancouver. I was filming in Vancouver a while ago, and someone's like, "Don't go to East Vancouver," and there's just needles all around. It's terrible. But the fentanyl problem is, yeah, it's hitting huge, isn't it? And again, too, like no one's dealing with. I mean, it's kind of a little bit like the opioid crisis too. Like no one's really dealing with the underlying issues of addiction. People are just, giving people more drugs instead of, just managing the process a little bit more carefully. Like it's just give me, right?
Yes. Well, and that's kind of what started then
Oh, here we go.
and that was
Cabaret dancing.
cabaret dance. In fact, I danced so poorly that people paid me money to stop. You made me a professional dancer.
There you go. Thursdays and Fridays, Saturdays in Vegas, 7 p.m., 9 p.m. shows.
Still qualified. So it's kind of twofold. One is I call it the hidden secret to emotional healing, because that's the key. Is you want to get to the cause, the root cause. So I was trained several therapies, very effective. One of which is EFT.
What's EFT?
Stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, or it's also known as tapping. So I studied with a guy who developed it, expanded it, and basically your whole body works on electricity.
Yeah.
Everything, chemistry is based on electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Water is 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, because hydrogen only has a single charge, and oxygen has a double charge, and it takes 2 to balance it. So everything is, well, it turns out when there's any kind of trauma, you're attacked, you witness something terrible, it results in an electrical disturbance in your nervous system. They call them electrical perturbation.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard that before.
It's like an
Yeah.
The challenge is that doesn't show up on any scan. And in my judgment, that's why talk therapy is so inefficient.
Inefficient.
I mean, it's very good. You're getting it out, but it's like talking to someone in cardiac arrest, talking to their heart now. Heart, tell me what.
Yeah, stop talking and fucking fix me fast. Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
And so it turns out in very specific spots, nerves comes to the surface of the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tap on the end of a nerve, it sends an electrical signal down the nerve. It's just pure physics.
Right now.
So turns out if the person is thinking about that car crash they were in as they're tapping on these spots, the brain knows where in the nervous system that disturbance is, and it's sending those electrical charges.
That's interesting. So you can calm people's anxiety and stress and that electrical imbalance through tapping in the brain.
Right. Well, even just tapping on those spots, 3 minutes, it triggers the autonomic nervous system and they relax. But more specifically, it's a very specific disturbance based on that trauma. And a lot of times they don't know what it is. So phobias is a good example.
Yeah, I mean, phobias are because anytime something traumatic happens to you, you feel off, like you feel like something's not quite right, and
Yes.
and it can be anxiety, it can be some depression, but then there's also something you feel like something's not where it should be, and that's that electrical imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So, and the power of tapping EFT is it can bring up the root cause. So I had a guy who was in the war, and he'd had severe abdominal pains for years and years, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. CAT scans, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just start with what's present. So we just started what the pain felt like, where it was, right, tapping. And I say, if anything, a memory pops up, let me know. Like 5-6 minutes. Got it.
Really? So the memory came to the surface?
Yes. And I said, what is it? Oh, it has nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me anyways.
Let me be the judge of that.
Yes. He says, well, my platoon was on patrol, and a landmine went off, and my best friend was to my right, and he took the brunt of the blast, and we didn't have a medic in our platoon, and he was pleading with me, please, save me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So out of curiosity, where was your friend wounded? Oh, right here. Right exactly where you see.
Wow, so he was carrying his friend's death blow, basically, in his own way, and the mind really works in a crazy way.
Yeah, that's why they couldn't find anything.
Because there wasn't.
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm working with somebody, I'll get an intuitive hit. So I developed invented a technique that takes away headaches in about 30 seconds based on eye movement. And a woman,
How are you not a billionaire right now?
oh, you're going to find out. Yeah. I was asking the same question.
Yeah, the amount of people who suffer from migraines and daily headaches and too much screen time and too much artificial light. I mean, take your pick.
Yep.
Too much driving. Yeah,
You're going to hear the answer soon.
I'm loving this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I have to go. I'm sorry.
I didn't see you show up on a private jet, so yeah, I'm sure there's a good story.
That's a good story. So, anyway, she sent me an email to ask if I worked on migraines. And I said, yes, but you have to get it before it really sets in. As soon as you start to feel it coming on. Because a lot of people have like a little aura before a migraine.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's like a clamp. And now tapping actually can be effective for relieving migraines.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I got it. I went, ooh. I said, well, why do you have migraines? They don't know. They can't find anything wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent her an email with the spots we were going to tap on. And I'm going to call you on the phone. And again, we just tapped on what was present. So,
Oh, you did that remotely? Oh.
it's better if I can tap on somebody versus them tapping, because it's the same nerve, like tickle. I can tickle myself, nothing. Somebody else tickles me. Same nerves, but it's more potent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just someone tapping on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're tapping on the light sensitivity, the nausea, pain, and all of a sudden I hear 14. 14. Mary, what happened when you were 14? She just started.
Oh, shit.
So I'm sorry I made you upset. What? Well, my mom got remarried when I was 14. And my stepdad started sexually abusing.
Oh, my God.
Mary, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So, Mary, out of curiosity, when did the migraine start? When I was 14.
So she's carrying that trauma with her, and it's causing her migraines.
I said, Mary, how did the migraines play into the abuse? That's what you wait to hear, that aha.
Mm-hmm.
She said, the only time he wouldn't abuse me is
So they come as a self-defense mechanism. Yeah.
you were giving yourself migraines for safety. I said, is he even still alive? No, he's not. And you still have migraines? Yeah. I bet it's when you don't feel safe. I'd never put that together. So now we stopped tapping on the migraines, and now we tap on that abuse.
Yeah.
Right? Abuse got resolved. Migraines went away.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy, mate?
Yeah. I just feel like there's so much medicine out there that can be done like that, where you're dealing, because I mean, I've definitely had a lot of people on the podcast and chatting, about dealing with trauma and then how trauma affects the body and how those two things are connected, and it has nothing to do with taking pharmaceuticals or evasive surgery or anything, right? It's just about identifying the trauma and dealing with it and having that somehow, heal you physically. Yeah. I mean, I guess what they call it alternative medicine here in the U.S., but I just feel like that should be mainstream.
Actually, yes. Yes.
It shouldn't be alternative.
Right.
Alternative is like rubbing yourself in honey and running through a forest because 1,000 bee stings in one afternoon will cause, you to live to 150. That's alternative medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah. But dealing with trauma, identifying trauma and how it affects the body physically, that should be like really mainstream before you even write a prescription for some kind of drug.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about the tapping is it can treat physical issues. So I actually stopped an asthma attack in 4 minutes on a lip.
Oh, really?
Didn't work.
By tapping.
Yeah. And they just focus on what they're feeling. You can even focus on the thoughts they're having. How am I going to continue on? All those things, because they're all tied in. But really, it's just even the symptoms alone is focus on. It's mind blowing. I can usually cure a phobia.
Cure a phobia in one session. What kind of phobias do people have out there that you regularly see?
So after one of the CPR classes I did, because I talk about tapping, great for if you have to do CPR on somebody. Even if it works, you're going to have dreams, sometimes nightmares, even if it worked, right?
Yeah.
And tapping is great for that. And after the class,
for you as the emergency medical
Right.
professional, or for the patient? I feel it's pretty traumatic for both, right?
Yeah. Yeah, more so actually usually for us. Because if they're cardiac arrests, they might remember it, but they're really just observing. They're not all upset when they're observing it. There's that piece they talk.
How do you carry all that around? Are you tapping yourself in the evenings to try to keep yourself healthy and mentally fit?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't carry all of that weight. Yeah. I think my mind, I don't know if my mind's too fragile or maybe I just haven't put it through something that difficult, but like seeing that day in and day out and having all those faces and those eyes, like, I mean, because you connect with someone so intimately when you're saving their lives. I would assume, I've never done it, but I mean, like, you would just remember all the faces. You would remember everyone looking at you. I mean, like that. And where does that all stay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the purpose of dreams, is to actually help your brain process the things so they don't become post-traumatic stress.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
But obviously, if it's more than the brain can process, that's when you get that. So this guy pulled me aside after class. He said, does that work on phobias, the tapping? I go, yes, that's actually discovered with phobias.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's going on? He says, well, I've had a fear of dogs for a long time. Doesn't matter if they're big or small. It's just incredible fear.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister's getting married, and I want to go to the wedding, but she has a dog. I said, okay, let's do some work. So right there.
Sounds like a great excuse to get out of going to a wedding. Why would you want to fix that phobia?
So we worked for about 15 minutes, about 5 minutes into it, I should say, total of 15 minutes, but about 5 minutes in, he goes, oh, what? When I was 6 years old, I was riding my bicycle and I'd being chased by a dog. It probably had rabies. He's foaming at the mouth. He's trying to bite my leg.
Yeah.
He'd totally forgotten about it. So we stopped about the general phobia and we just went back to that trauma.
Mm.
And in 15 minutes, he couldn't get upset about it. Okay, close your eyes, because when he closed his eyes, initially, like a 10 out of 10. Imagine that dog. All of a sudden, he could still remember it, but all the emotion was taken away. And the next day, he flew, and his sister, the dog, runs up to him and bought him.
Wow, that's amazing.
And the sister, of course, says, hey, let's go to the dog.
Yeah. There's more dogs.
And they go to the dog park and set him and all.
That's incredible.
That's been 4 years. I saw him like a couple of weeks ago. He says, Bob, been 4 years, man. Still, in fact, I got a dog now.
Oh, wow. That's how you know they've come full circle, right? Yeah. I was speaking with a doctor, a woman who was here with me, and she was cycling across America last year, and she got attacked by a dog, 2 dogs or 3 dogs that were chasing her on her bike, and they did bite into her, and they did have rabies, and she did have to go to but they almost pulled her off her bike. They were trying to pull her off her bike to maul her. Like, and she's in her early 60s in very good physical health, and she does a lot of cycling trips all around the world. But this is like just last year. Like, there's a real problem with dogs, chasing things, right? And of course, if they have rabies, they have this. What does the rabies do? It like turns off their defense mechanism, so they're not afraid of things. I think which is why you see like dogs chasing cars and shit like that, which doesn't make any sense. If the dog had any kind of self-preservation gene left, they wouldn't chase cars. But it happens all the time. I think rabies turns off that self-preservation, and they just start chasing it. It's really terrifying. Well, everyone thinks dogs are so cute and cuddly, right? And then, of course, like if you go to Tibet or India or Pakistan, places I've filmed all around the world, like dogs are really dangerous because they're in Tibet specifically. Sometimes they're like a crossbreed of wolf and dog, and sometimes you get these and they're there to protect the homes. They're there to attack. They chase bicycles. They chase motorcycles. They chase cars. It's really terrifying. Because I rode my motorcycle all around China, so yeah. And we made a TV show about it. But the amount of dogs that were chasing us was just crazy. Like every time we went through a village, we would have to, we would go through at one consistent speed, which is the worst thing to do if you want to get really into it. What we would do is we would come into a village and we would see all the dogs, and they were just waiting for us, to get to some certain space. And then once they would get up and start their way towards us, kind of measuring our current speed, that's when we would gun it and just try to get out of that village as quickly as possible. But then we would have 4 or 5 dogs chasing us out of the village. And that was like maybe 5 or 10 times a day of dealing with that. It was the dogs in some parts of the world are just terrifying and can really ruin a great motorcycle adventure.
I would say so.
So that's our dog tangent.
Yes. So the last career that I have was a revelation that they estimate 85% of people that are in hospital for medical problems, the root cause was an emotional trauma.
85%.
Forgiveness, all that, because it affects your physiology.
Mm-hmm.
Acid level. You have to be acidic to have viruses live. Even cancer cells need to be acidic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really dove into my curiosity for myself of why I kept sabotaging all these wonderful things that were laid in my lap. I had opportunities that are unbelievable, $1 million opportunities. Just like, here you go, Bob. And stuff would happen. What? And then I discovered that our beliefs are in the subconscious part of the mind, and they will dictate your life. That's why affirmations aren't all that effective. If you say, I'm successful, this, I'm that, subconscious mind goes, no, you don't want to be. Because, if you become successful, people are going to be, think you're greedy. They're going to be, money's the root of all evil. You can't.
So we're being sabotaged by our subconscious. Everyone? Huh.
And most of our subconscious beliefs comes from early childhood.
Yeah, that seems like, that's when those ideas would form, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't aware that was going on, but that was going on. So I developed a technique. I call it the hidden secret brain technique that allows you to reprogram your subconscious mind. So the brains have certain frequencies. Theta is the most powerful frequency, but it's tough to get into because that's right before you fall asleep. You're only just seconds and you go from alpha, which is very, like meditation is alpha, very comfortable. But it's that theta that's the key. And there's a special language of the brain, all that kind of stuff. And that's one of my gifts, is to put things together and come up with something new. And it worked. And so all of a sudden these opportunities started happening. Go, what in the world? In fact, even the SetMedic stuff blossomed because of that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was getting calls. First I would get a call, no, we're not hiring any medics. No. Same person call after I did my technique. Hey, if you really want it, but you just told me that.
Yeah.
No, we just want you.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
I mean, reprogramming the subconscious does seem like a heavy load to lift. Like that can't be easy.
Yes. So, and I found if I did the EFT, the tapping, along with my brain technique, it was like on steroids, more powerful.
Mm.
And I love helping people, and my frustrations of, how the medical system works in terms of cancer treatment. So I decided to start a coaching program for cancer patients.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I called The Hidden Secret to Healing.com.
And .com.
So first off, to help people, kind of give them inside scoops, what all cancer cells have to survive, right? They have to be acidic, low oxygen levels, and they need a lot of glucose, a lot of sugar. Well, if that's what they need to survive, biology says any cell that doesn't get what they need to survive, what naturally happen?
They'll die.
Right. But now if you take this hyperthermia thing, breakthrough, and add that to it, again, that's
right,
because viruses have that same hyperthermia.
Because when they warm up the body, I thought your body, I thought when you have a fever, it's your body is working overtime or heating up to defend yourself.
Makes viruses weak.
So your body heats up,
makes it easier for your immune system, which is in hyperdrive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes it easier for your immune system to take care of virus.
Oh, that's interesting.
And yet, but if you were to call your physician and say, hey, doc, I got a temperature of 101, what would most of them say?
Oh, you got to go to the hospital.
Oh,
you're dead?
Take Tylenol, take Advil to break the fever.
Why would you want to break the fever if it's working? Yeah. Although sometimes you can don't people die of fever? Like sometimes I do know that the immune system can kill you. Like our body's immune systems can kill us. Like I think I'm pretty aware of that fact. So I guess when the body's working overtime and it can't kill the virus, like the fever does take people's lives at some stage.
So you have a built-in thermostat that regulates that. So I assume like 103, 104 is generally the...
Yeah, that's in Celsius. I'm Canadian. That in Celsius, what's that, like 38 or 37 degrees Celsius or something? Yeah. Talk to a medical professional, not us. Yeah, but okay.
Get your calculator out.
Yeah.
And so if it goes over that, that's when you seek medical care because it's going to go too high. Your brain can't handle 106, 107 degree temperature. But for the most part, that's now kids are more susceptible. They don't have a strong regulator, so you have to watch them very carefully. It does too.
That's interesting. Just as an aside, my brother is a huge advocate of cold plunging and saunas, and he like never gets sick and he's super healthy. And but he was saying like just those shocks to the system, and the way that the sauna works, and then the way the cold plunge works, and the way it revitalizes, the blood flow and everything like that. This is all about preventative medicine. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yes. Excuse me. One of the things I'd always been curious about, even in my medical school program, was the placebo effect.
Right, when we imagine something to be happening without it actually happening.
So in drug trials, they always have a placebo group where they give them a sugar pill.
Right.
But they tell them, this is the drug, you're part of a drug trial. And 35% of people will have the benefit, and on average, the benefit of the drug.
Right, that's crazy.
You tell them about side effects, they'll have side effects, but they weren't given anything.
That's insane.
And I always thought, well, then why don't we use that on purpose?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my big pushes in medicine is we need to use it. If a doctor gave you a prescription, say you had a bad infection, this is the best antibiotic for exactly what you have on the planet. It would work better. But it's the same chemicals as if he just handed it to you.
Right.
That's the ability. The nocebo effect is we can actually negate it. He could give you a drug that would save your life, but if you don't believe it will, you can literally negate the benefits.
Really? I didn't know the body could just ignore as well as...
Amazing me.
Huh.
In fact, a friend of mine had cancer, and I noticed, and I gave him, okay, make sure you cut out the refined sugars and balance your pH, all this thing. And he wasn't doing it. And the hospital said they give you milkshakes.
Yeah. That seems counterproductive. Yeah.
And it turns out that he had a really tough childhood, and he didn't get love as a kid, and he was getting so much love having cancer. He didn't want to get better.
That's crazy. So his cancer, it increased and eventually took his life because he was loving the attention.
Yep.
That's wrong on so many levels.
It is wrong.
Yeah.
There was a woman who had 6 weeks to live, who's metastatic, means it spread.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in her bones, her lungs, her brain. Her body was literally shutting down. You have at most 6 weeks to live. But her daughter was getting married in 7 months. Guess how long she lived?
Till like 1 week after her daughter got married.
Now that's medically impossible because her body was shutting down. And what overrode that? Her mind.
Yeah.
But in that case, it was a positive mindset. With limiting beliefs that we have, it's actually a negative mindset. Oh, I'll never be successful. I was told, I even had a high school English teacher, for some reason, just didn't like me. And I was always a very quiet, very shy, respectful kid. You'll never amount to anything.
Mm-hmm.
That stuck with me.
What a terrible thing to say to a child. Yeah.
I know. So I realized that my brain technique could be applied to physical healing, to release that miraculous healing of that subconscious mind and kind of like releasing the placebo effect.
It's interesting. So, I mean, obviously, if you are going to go the traditional healthcare route for these illnesses, definitely some of these mind exercises and kind of psychological what, investigation, like trying to find out these past traumas and how they're still affecting you is like, it should be incorporated, I guess, into all of these treatments. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the mind is keeping us alive and tearing us apart all at the same time.
Well, even in Scripture, like in the Old Testament, it talks about that bitterness will give you brittle bones.
Mm.
Well, science has discovered that bitterness, which is unforgiveness, causes chemical changes that give you osteoporosis, which is
Brittle bones. Yeah.
3,000 years ago. And even the opposite, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. It's from Proverbs. Well, it turns out merry heart is medicine. When you laugh, especially a hearty belly laughing, in your blood you produce interferon, interleukin, and antineoplastins. Cancer drugs probably in a stronger concentration than any chemotherapy drug.
Did you ever see? There was a story in National Geographic like maybe 15, 20 years ago, and it sticks with me because one of my friends shot the story, but as a photographer. But there's a beach in Mumbai where people gather every day to laugh, and it's a healthcare remedy, and people do it, and they there's a lot of people in a lot of different ages, and they just basically say like they attribute their healthiness in life, mental and physical, to these laugh sessions. And like there's 50 or 30 people, they all get together on the beach in the mornings before work. Some maybe they do a run or maybe they do a walk, and then they gather and they just laugh for like 30 minutes, and then they all say their goodbyes and go on with their day. And that like concentrated laughing, being outside, being near the water, and then having that kind of shared communal laughing experience is what they accredit to being healthier. I thought that was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Norman Cousin, he actually wrote a book about his experience with cancer and using laughter. I think it was like these Three Stooges. He loved it. It was just force himself to laugh and laugh, good nutrition, right? And
yeah. So we should go to the Comedy Store every night on Sunset just to get that out.
Only for the good comedians.
So they're pretty good up there. They're doing all right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So what do you have going on now? Like, what does the rest of your 2024 look like? Where is all these 6 careers and everything you're working on? Where's it all kind of taking you this year?
So I'm making a shift. I mean, I love the set medic work. It's phenomenal. But I'm usually helping a limited number of people at a time. And especially with my background and my understanding of how the body heals and my brain technique to release that. In fact, so that's why I'm focusing. And when I was a kid, I was raised in a wonderful Christian family. I mean, they lived the life. Kids would flock to my house because it was love and acceptance, grace and mercy, and that's the true gospel, right? And I personally believe that those intuitive hits is God talking to us. Especially there's no way I can know it otherwise. But I couldn't understand why in Scripture talk about the necessary, or how it's necessary to have faith for healing. Even Jesus said, well, your faith has made you. But God doesn't need what God, if only Bobby would believe.
Yeah.
I could pull this off. That never made sense.
Faith-based healing.
Right.
Yeah.
Never made sense until I realized the placebo effect is faith. The people that get that 35%, the people that get it, they had the faith.
But it doesn't have anything to do with religion. No.
But it's how God designed us.
To have faith in something that...
So that miraculous healing ability in our body, right? We're a self-healing miracle. You cut yourself, it heals. All you need to do is give it a little help with some direct pressure. It does all the hard work. It clots itself up, seals. A lot of times there's not even a scar. You get a cold, flu, don't take anything over the counter. It heals, right? Designed to do that.
If your immune system is still, if you're healthy and all that kind of stuff, if you're doing...
Exactly. So I like to think of that healing in like a water... like a kitchen faucet, right? It's in the pipes already. And faith is what turns on the spigot and allows it to flow.
So you just have to have faith that you'll be healed, faith that this is going to work, and then that triggers your immune system to take it up a notch?
And everything.
Yeah.
Or your body to do everything it needs to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, if you walk around life thinking that you're that you do. I mean, you have no self-esteem and you don't think you're going to do this or you don't think you're going to do that. And no one tells you that you can do these things. Like you're just going to, your entire life will just crumble. Like, because you don't have faith in yourself. Right. And I think it's hard though to have faith in a medical procedure or a medical, like, I think like you really have to, I don't know. I mean, I'm not someone who doubts myself that often, but if you're dealing with a third party who's trying to help you, like it would be hard to just be like, have blind faith, I guess would be the thing that I would struggle with.
Yes. Well, interesting in their studies of the placebo effect, if you were given the pill by a technician, it had like a 20% positive response. If it was a nurse, it was 25%. If it was a doctor, it was 30%. If the doctor was wearing a white lab coat, it was 35%, the highest placebo response. Because in your mind, oh, doctor in lab coat, this must be.
What about a big Saint Bernard with a little thing around its neck with a little bit of whiskey and a little pill just for you, right? Because yeah.
But you're right. It's tough to have that kind of faith.
Yeah, because you really have to. I mean, I guess if you're truly ill, maybe you'll believe in everything because maybe that'll. Yeah, because you got nothing to lose, right? Like, so that's maybe how you have to change that mindset. But if you're dealing with something that's not potentially fatal, I don't know. So again, some people talk themselves out of the right thing all the time. Like maybe the right thing is just to have more blind faith in other people. But then you hear all these horror stories too. It's really hard to trust.
Yes. Well, and that's what I'm really excited about because I believe that my brain technique can release the placebo effect like a switch.
Oh, that's interesting.
Brain in that certain state, phrases like they are, because at that point, you bypass all the conscious filter kind of things.
Well, would you suggest that the placebo effect is a positive or a negative thing?
Absolutely positive.
Right, because then we can get the benefits of various medicines without actually having to take medicines.
That's true, and I have to be careful about saying that's true, because always seek the care of a good healthcare provider.
Right.
But let's say you're receiving some sort of therapy. If you believe this therapy is going to work, the chances of it working dramatically go up. So you might as well. But there are people like Norman Cousins. He did not take any physical treatment for his cancer, but he believed from his experience as an MD that, laughter would stimulate the immune system, all that.
And he beat his cancer without any traditional medical health care, chemo, anything.
Yeah. And there are stories like you would not believe. Tuberculosis healed overnight. Guy had throat cancer. He'd never been to a doctor ever in his life. His family said, no, you got to see a doctor. So he goes there and the doc says, yeah, you've got throat cancer. Puts a thermometer in his mouth. He says, I'll be right back. He didn't know what a thermometer was. He'd never been to a doctor. He comes back in 5 minutes. He says, oh, I'm sorry. It took me so long. No, I feel better already. He says, what do you mean? Well, that radiation treatment you just gave me, right? You said you're going to give radiation treatment. He looks in the throat and it's improved.
Just because he gave him a thermometer and he didn't know what it was.
And he thought it was his treatment.
Right.
So, and my understanding is the doctor said, we'll come back, in 2 days for your next treatment. I just kept putting the thermometer in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, it is insane. Because, I mean, especially when you're talking about cancer, statistically, everyone has cancer, right? And like you said, our bodies are fit enough at the moment or at these stages in our lives to, defend ourselves from those cells. But eventually we hit a tipping point where our immune system's no longer healthy enough to take care of it. And that's when problems really begin. But it's strange that, again, some of these more holistic approaches aren't even talked about. Yeah. Because I think these alternative medicines or some of these preventative practices, doing them is not going to hurt you. Preventative medicine does not hurt you, right? Like stay healthy, eat healthy, exercise, focus on sleep and sleep etiquette, and really kind of clean up some things in your life. But that's so good for everyone. and no one really is teaching it or talking about it. I mean, they should have, I was always thinking like in grade school or high school, they should have like a preventative medicine best practices class that teaches you how to avoid having to go to a doctor,
Mm.
and you know, and how like living a healthier, more functional life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on my website, The Hidden Secret to Healing, there's a 45-minute master class. It's free and talks about how to make your body hostile cancer cells, and kind of talks about more detail about what we discussed. I'll send you a link that you can put for folks. It's a YouTube video that I did, kind of a condensed training on EFT basics. And part of that is like a 3.5-minute follow along.
Okay.
So they just follow along, and literally in 3 minutes.
Just like breathing exercises.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the 4, 5, 6 breathing. Have you heard about that?
No.
So if you breathe in for 4, count of 4, hold it for 5, and breathe out for a count of 6. There's 2 things. One, it makes your brain focus on that, so you can't be focusing as hard as you were on while you're upset.
Something negative,
And it forces you to take in more oxygen.
which is always helpful.
Always help. And we tend to be too shallow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They found I learned this from Tony Robbins, that there is a set physiology to every single emotional state. So when you're nervous, you feel the same way every time. Stomach acids increase, like muscles contract. Scores, goal of score, touchdown, right? You open up. Severe depression is the exact opposite. Down. So someone severely depressed, head down, slump shoulders, shallow breathing, upper chest.
Guaranteed every time.
Every time. And they can't get out of that severe depression unless they change the physiology. Now, I went through severe depression years ago. Life just fell out. It was just awful. And I went to a psychologist, a PhD psychologist, and he didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. So guess what my physiology was like?
Yeah.
It didn't matter what he said, right over my head. So for them, just, okay, if the physiology is head down, we'll have them raise their head. Slump shoulders, have them bring their shoulders back. Super.
Body language is huge. Yeah.
Huge. And instantly what that does, it gets them from severe depression to severely sad. Now, there's a reason they're depressed, right? So they're still sad about it. But the difference is you can ask them questions.
They can engage.
It's like tunnel vision. All I could see was the stuff that was bad in life. Couldn't see anything good. Now, to get them out of that physiology, okay, did you sleep on the street last night? No, I slept in the bed. Isn't that good? Especially it's cold out there. Yeah, write that down.
Mm-hmm.
You have a cat? Yeah. You like the cat? Yeah, write that down. And what that does helps the brain realize that not everything is bad and process the stuff that is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So just that change in physiology is a huge gift. And then if they have the tapping, come on now.
The tapping is the key.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. That's interesting. So I mean, do you give talks about this? I mean, are you gonna maybe put some of this stuff together in a book or anything like that? Is that kind of on the cards? Because it seems like, again, there's, people should be aware that there are other treatments for everything, right? And then I think it's up to us, the public, to decide what we want to use and how much we want to use of different things all the time, right? And it sounds like a lot of the things that I don't want to say like prescribing, but you're just kind of bringing to the surface, people can use in their daily lives. Like you don't have to wait until there's a problem.
Right. And it's scientifically backed. That's
Right.
a great thing. There have been great research done. So it's not like, because there's some people that think that the tapping is just you're aligning the chakras or something like, oh, that's too woo. But it's physical. You're literally sending electrical signals to an electrical body, electrical nervous system, correcting electrical perturbation.
Is that similar like to acupuncture as well? Doesn't that have something to do with that?
Yes. So some people say EFT is like acupuncture without needles.
Right.
And it's 10 times better.
Oh, really? Just the tapping?
Because acupuncture is pretty much passive. Tapping, you're actively thinking about what's bothering you.
Right.
Because normally they say, just relax, breathe deep. Whereas it's great. But again, when you stick those needles in, do you feel it?
I don't know. I've never done it.
Painful, but
Yeah.
your body feels it. That creates an electrical signal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's doing a little of the same. But imagine, instead of just holding that in there, I like to alternate, take advantage, right?
Yeah.
You're going through.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that makes yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I just think like trying to stimulate the body's immune system in different ways is really healthy. Like I just feel like there's no one-stop shop for everything. And of course, I just feel like a lot of the pharmaceutical stuff that you also can get your hands on, like it just doesn't, you're way better off boosting your immune system in a healthy way, in a natural way, in a non-pharmaceutical way, if your body's healthy enough to actually do it. Yeah. And that's a complete zero medical background, completely not a doctor. But I've hurt myself a lot, and I've seen people get hurt a lot, and I've had a lot of sports injuries and stuff like that. And I just feel like, yeah, sometimes you're better off.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I'm looking at writing.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
The challenge is, since I'm always learning, love to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Afraid of publishing the book, and then, oh, dude, it needs another chapter now.
Yeah.
But
well, volume two.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sequel.
Well, I think it's interesting because you're on a bit of a journey. Yeah. And I think where you are now is pretty fascinating. And then where you'll be in 5 years will be even more fascinating. So, it's just because I feel like, how do I say this without getting, I feel like COVID really made people question the traditional healthcare system that we currently exist in. And I think too, it made people really question vaccines and the pharmaceutical industry and the connections between all this. And
if they paid attention,
yeah,
there were signs. It wasn't like it was all kept secret. They tried to, but they saw the connections and the influence and the suppression of, like, one doctor, cardiologist, the most published cardiologist in history, and they suppressed him, canceled him. He got fired from his university.
Yeah.
But all because he was saying, well, there's some, things that don't make sense physiologically in the body. And
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, like vaccines are great. Like I don't want to get polio anytime soon, so I'm glad they have a vaccine for that. Yeah. But I just feel like just rolling them out all the time for every single problem is not probably helping us. Yeah, and I think too, as a society, as a nation, let's just take the United States for example. Like as a nation, like we should be a lot healthier on a daily basis, and I think that's also a real big issue. I mean, I read something too, like 80%, like when the first wave of COVID hit, especially in New York City. I think I'm pretty sure the statistic was there. I wish I had someone to check this now, but someone else who's listening can check and write in the comments. But in the first wave of COVID that hit New York in like March, April, May, June 2020, something along the lines of 80% of the people who died during that time were obese and had underlying health conditions, and so these are people who were already predisposed to getting sick and potentially also to living in a less healthy way or a less healthy environment, and it just makes me so confused why, something that's affecting relatively unhealthy people would somehow, we all had to shelter in place and not go to school and not go to work when you could just maybe ask the people who are predisposed to these illnesses or have underlying conditions to maybe stay at home or, keep the elderly safe, obviously, but let the rest of us kind of go about our business. Like I was always so confused about that, and it really just was a confusing time for a lot of people.
Yeah. And as a medical professional, I saw things along the same line. In fact, think about going to your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
They always say, feel free to get a second opinion,
mm-hmm.
because you go to the doctor, they'll say something different. And it's the same body, the same condition.
Mm-hmm.
That's the glory of it, is you get different perspectives and, hey, this makes more sense than that or whatever. But that went out the window.
Mm-hmm.
It was, everybody has to do this. Doctors, you can follow this protocol.
Mm-hmm.
That's...
You'll like this. So in 2019, I filmed 10 expeditions in 10 countries in 10 months. So we were filming 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for 10 months. I think in 2019, I think I slept in a tent like 150 nights. But I'll tell you, like, my immune system was bulletproof. Like for the years that I was doing that at that level, like, first of all, I was incredibly physically active, right? We're climbing, we're trekking all around the world, we're making these TV shows. We're sleeping outside, we're sleeping in the natural rhythm with the earth. Like, we go to bed at 6 p.m., we wake up at 5. Like, when it's dark outside and you're on the side of a mountain, you go to bed. Like, that's nothing else to do. There's no digital distraction. There's no artificial light.
Yeah.
There's none of this stuff. And this rhythm that I got into, I mean, I went like 3 or 4 years of this aggressive level of filming without really getting sick, like, ever. Because, and people are like, oh my God, you're going to Papua New Guinea? Like, what kind of like vaccinations do you need before you go there? And like, you don't need like anything. You just go and, and everyone was just so like, oh, what kind of diseases do they have there? Or like, oh, like, and it's just like, no, you just go. Like, sure. I mean, if you're not a physically healthy person to begin with, sure, maybe there's some issues, but but that predisposition of fear that we all seem to have, and of course, fear is how you sell things to people, right? And that's a problem. But it was almost like just being really healthy, really kind of fearless, just a bulletproof immune system, and it was a really good run. And then now, since COVID, like, living in the city, living in a less athletic, environment, not sleeping outside, not sleeping with the natural rhythm of the earth, having our artificial light, air conditioning, like all this kind of stuff, it really does hurt your immune. Like, it just takes little chips away of your immune system all the time. And I've gotten way more sick in the last few years than I did previously, and it's because of that lifestyle. But it's really interesting that I can see that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with anything, the sooner you treat something, the better. So one of my frustrations during COVID was that the public was told, if you get it, it's your sense of smell and taste and symptoms, don't seek treatment. Stay at home, or while you're there, infect the rest of your family. And then once you have difficulty breathing, your lips are chewing, then go get help. Well, that's like calling the fire department and say, hey, my kitchen's on fire. They say, well, wait till it spreads to the living room, and then we'll come. We treat it early, we can put the fire out, much easier than it spreads. And like we talked about before, the vitamin D, that's the core of the immune system, and we know the immune system take care of viruses. They weren't told anything about that. The only thing was stay at home, drink fluids, and take Tylenol.
You want to hear a funny thing? So I lived in Dubai for a few years, and everyone knows, like, you can get vitamin D from the sun, from sunlight, right? So, and obviously Dubai is a place that's very sunny. It's the Middle East. It's very hot. Dubai, I think, is one of the top 3 cities in the world for days of sunlight per year. Yeah. So, but one of the biggest problems in Dubai in the healthcare system is vitamin D deficiency.
Interesting.
Right? You wouldn't think that, but the problem is like, everyone's working inside, everyone's living inside, and then in the summertime, it's so hot there that people almost are never outside and they're never in direct sunlight. So you almost create this society, and also too, like, people in the Middle East, the diet is very bread based, it's very meat based. There's a lot of sugar. Like, there's a lot of people with diabetes in that part of the world. It's a big issue. But I just found, like, the fact that you could have a vitamin D deficiency in such a sunny place made no sense to me. But then when I went there, like, I could start feeling my vitamin D, like, deficiency, and I would get it tested and it would be way low. And of course, because I was living like everyone else was, and then I would, go get a shot or like a little booster of vitamins, to kind of balance that out again. But it's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can certainly understand during all this, the fear that people had and how it overwhelmed the medical system, because they didn't know that they could be taking vitamin C and vitamin E and vitamin D, good hydration, to help their body deal with what was going on. That is general knowledge. That's where a natural medicine doc, a naturopath, osteopathic physician, that's what their specialty is. Heal.
Yeah.
And then that would have solved that whole overwhelming the hospital system.
I think for me, it's like, I always prefer to let my body do things naturally versus artificially. That's always been a big thing for me. So just watching this kind of like fear-based drive of people chasing artificial answers to physical questions, that already kind of sets me off in a bit of a wrong way. Like I feel like if we do our preventative lifestyle treatments, like, you know, we should be in a position where, of course, there are extenuating circumstances, and there are people who are having their own, you know, who are predisposed to bigger problems. That's fine. But if you're not, like, you know, the body is pretty amazing, and you'll probably have a chance to probably work right through it, right? And so that really bothers me of already, like that kind of triggers me into disbelief. And then the other thing that really bothers me is this fear-based selling. Like, and you would see this a lot in China when I lived there. You would see this a lot anywhere. Like, and it's completely made me revolt and step back from absolutely anything that comes at you from a fear-based sales point. And I don't know. I hope that's a healthy skepticism and not a, you know, something that's going to end up getting me killed someday. But it does really, and I see it here in the United States more than anywhere else.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the whole experience will catch the attention of people to realize that nature is there for a purpose. Carrots, good for vitamin A, and therefore we're getting the source to boost the immune system. So again, a diabetic emergency, what is the fastest way to reverse it? A can of Coke or, say, fish juice?
That's a good question. I have no idea. So what would be a diabetic emergency? So a patient has
Sugar's too low.
So what happens to them?
So blood sugar is kind of like oxygen to the brain. Need good levels. Either one of those in your brain is going to be in trouble. And the number one thing happening with diabetics is it's too low. It's very rare it's too high. And if it is too high, it takes like 24 hours to be a problem.
So do they like pass out?
They can.
Okay.
Now that doesn't happen until it gets really, really low. But they always have symptoms early on. They know this going on. Sometimes it's just the shakes. So a can of Coke is not from nature. Your brain, remember, the whole body's from nature, except you've had knee replacements, right?
Right.
And the only thing your brain knows is what's from nature. Now, the good thing is it can look at Coke, by the way, high fructose corn syrup. They make it sound like it's natural. It's a man-made chemical.
Of course, yeah, that's terrible.
So that's not going to work. However...
And that's in everything.
However, the brain is smart enough, it can look at the chemical structure and go, you know, I can tear that apart and rebuild it into glucose, which is the body's sugar. But that takes more time. Right? So it'll work, but it's slower. Grape juice is the fastest natural sugar for a diabetic.
Can you get even like natural grape juice anywhere, or is it all pre-processed kind of garbage?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of it in the regular grocery store is just going to be most likely that garbage.
Yeah.
Health food stores.
Mm-hmm. So grape juice from grapes yep. is the fastest way to avoid to treat someone who's having a diabetic
yep.
emergency. Huh.
And if it's that rare occasion that it's too high and you give them more glucose, that's not going to change it.
No.
Kind of like throwing a glass of water into a swimming pool. That's not going to change the level. Because they don't have enough. They may have just saved their brain.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Well, look, we should move towards wrapping this up. I know you have a few other things you need to get done today, but thank you so much for coming by and sharing all this with me.
I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
I knew it was going to be a good conversation when you came out and said that your father and your grandfather were both morticians. I thought, like, that's a great way to start a conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah. So now we can go here to the wide one so people can see we're actually in the same room.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for swinging by.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
Fade to black.